Well, hello there, and welcome to the first week of Advent. If you're like me, you're probably finding joy a little hard to come by this season. So, Wotan Bear and I thought it was high time for some poetry, something to speak the chaos into restoration. Over the course of the Christmas season and a little after it, we're going to be reading through W.H. Auden's For the Time Being. Written in 1942, during a time of great personal and global crisis, Auden intended this poem to be set to music by the great English composer Benjamin Britten. Unfortunately, the work proved a little long for the purpose after all, but the oratorio form still remains. Now, an oratorio is a large-scale musical work for orchestra and voice that usually has an overarching narrative theme, kind of like Handel's Messiah, actually exactly like Handel's Messiah. And you'll hear the character and movement changes in the poem as we go. So, enough gab, time to settle in. I encourage you to grab a warm drink, curl up in your favorite cozy chair or couch, maybe grab a friend, and close your eyes. Just embrace the opportunity to return to childhood and pretend you're listening to a bedtime story. May your listening become hearing. Let's begin. For the Time Being, a Christmas Oratorio. In memoriam of Constance Rosalie Auden, 1870 to 1941. Inscription. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. Romans 6. Part 1. Advent. Chorus. Darkness and snow descend. The clock on the mantelpiece has nothing to recommend, nor does the face in the glass appear nobler than our own, as darkness and snow descend on all personality. Huge crowds mumble, "Alas, our angers do not increase. Love is not what she used to be." Portly Caesar yawns, "I know." He falls asleep on his throne. They shuffle off through the snow. Darkness and snow descend. Semi-chorus. Can great Hercules keep his extraordinary promise to reinvigorate the empire? Utterly lost, he cannot even locate his task, but stands in some decaying orchard or the irregular shadow of a ruined temple, aware of being watched from the horrid mountains by fanatical eyes. Yet, seeing no one at all, only hearing the silence softly broken by the poisonous rustle of famishing arachne. Chorus. Winter completes an age with its thorough leveling. Heaven's tourbillons of rage abolish the watchman's tower and delete the cedar grove. As winter completes an age, the eyes huddle like cattle. Doubt seeps into the pores and power ebbs from the heavy signet ring. The prophet's lantern is out, and gone the boundary stone. Cold the heart and cold the stove. Ice condenses on the bone. Winter completes an age. Semi-chorus. Outside the civil garden of everyday love, there crouches a wild passion to destroy and be destroyed. Oh, who would boast their power, have challenged it to charge? Like wheat, our souls are sifted and cast into the void. Chorus. The evil and armed draw near. The weather smells of their hate, and the houses smell of our fear. Death has opened his white eye, and the black hole calls the thief as the evil and armed draw near. Ravens alight on the wall. Our plans have all gone awry. The rains will arrive too late. Our resourceful general fell down dead as he drank, and his horses died of grief. Our navy sailed away and sank. The evil and armed draw near. Narrator. If, on account of the political situation, there are quite a number of homes without roofs, and men lying about in the countryside, neither drunk nor asleep, if all sailings have been cancelled till further notice, if it's unwise now to say much in letters, And if, under the subnormal temperatures prevailing, the two sexes are at present the weak and the strong, that is not at all unusual for this time of year. If that were all, we should know how to manage. Flood, fire, the desiccation of grasslands, restraint of princes, piracy on the high seas, physical pain and fiscal grief, these, after all, are our familiar tribulations. And we have been through them all before many, many times. As events which belong to the natural world, where the occupation of space is the real and final fact, and time turns around itself in an obedient circle, they occur again and again, but only to pass again and again into their formal opposites. From sword to plowshare, coffin to cradle, war to work, so that, taking the bad with the good, the pattern composed by the 10,000 odd things that can possibly happen is permanent in a general average way. Till lately we knew of no other, and between us we seemed to have what it took: the adrenal courage of the tiger, the chameleon's discretion, the modesty of the doe, or the fern's devotion to spatial necessity. To praise one's peculiar civic virtue was not so impossible after all. To cut our losses and bury our dead was really quite easy. That was why we were always able to say, "We are children of God, and our Father has never forsaken his people." But then, we were children. That was a moment ago, before an outrageous novelty had been introduced into our lives. Why were we never warned? Perhaps we were. Perhaps that mysterious noise at the back of the brain we noticed on certain occasions, sitting alone in the waiting room of the country junction, looking up at the toilet window, was not indigestion, but this horror starting already to scratch its way in. Just how, just when it succeeded, we shall never know. We can only say that now it is there, and that nothing we learnt before it was there is now of the slightest use, for nothing like it has happened before. It's as if we had left our house for 5 minutes to mail a letter, and during that time the living room had changed places with the room behind the mirror over the fireplace. It's as if, waking up with a start, we discovered ourselves stretched out flat on the floor, watching our shadow sleepily stretching itself at the window. I mean that the world of space, where events reoccur, is still there, only now it's no longer real. The real one is nowhere, where time never moves and nothing can ever happen. I mean that although there's a person we know all about still bearing our name and loving himself as before, that person has become a fiction. Our true existence is decided by no one and has no importance to love. That is why we despair. That is why we would welcome the nursery bogey or the wine-cellar ghost, why even the violent howling of winter and war has become like a jukebox tune that we dare not stop. We are afraid of pain, but more afraid of silence. For no nightmare of hostile objects could be as terrible as this void. This is the abomination. This is the wrath of God. Chorus. Alone, alone about a dreadful wood of conscious evil runs a lost mankind, dreading to find its father, lest it find the goodness it has dreaded is not good. Alone, alone about our dreadful wood. Where is that law for which we broke our own? Where now that justice for which flesh resigned her hereditary right to passion, mind his will to absolute power? Gone! Gone! Where is that law for which we broke our own? The pilgrim way has led to the abyss. Was it to meet such grinning evidence we left our richly colored ignorance? Was the triumphant answer to be this? The pilgrim way has led to the abyss. We who must die demand a miracle. How could the eternal do a temporal act, the infinite become a finite fact? Nothing can save us that is possible. We who must die demand a miracle. Recitative. If the muscle can feel repugnance, there is still a false move to be made. If the mind can imagine tomorrow, there is still a defeat to remember. As long as the self can say, I, it is impossible not to rebel. As long as there is an accidental virtue, there is a necessary vice. And the garden cannot exist, the miracle cannot occur. For the garden is the only place there is, but you will not find it until you have looked for it everywhere and found nowhere that is not a desert. The miracle is the only thing that happens. But to you, it will not be apparent until all events have been studied and nothing happens that you cannot explain, and life is the destiny you are bound to refuse until you have consented to die. Therefore, see without looking, hear without listening, breathe without asking. The inevitable is what will seem to happen to you purely by chance. The real is what will strike you as really absurd. Unless you are certain you are dreaming, it is certainly a dream of your own. Unless you exclaim, there must be some mistake, you must be mistaken. Chorus. Oh, where is that immortal and nameless center from which our points of definition and death are all equidistant? Where the well of our wish to wander, the everlasting fountain of the waters of joy that our sorrow uses for tears? Oh, where is the garden of being that is only known in existence as the command to be never there, the sentence by which alephs of throbbing fact have been banished into position, the clock that dismisses the moment into the turbine of time? Oh, would I could mourn over fate like the others, the resolute creatures, by seizing my chance to regret. The stone is content with a formal anger and falls and falls. The plants are indignant with one dimension only and can only doubt whether light or darkness lies in the worst direction. And the subtler exiles who try every path are satisfied with proving that none have a goal. Why must man also acknowledge it is not enough to bear witness, for even protest is wrong? Earth is cooled and fire is quenched by his unique excitement. All answers expire in the clench of his questioning hand. His singular emphasis frustrates all possible order. Alas, his genius is wholly for envy. Alas, the vegetative sadness of lakes, the locomotive beauty of choleric beasts of prey, are nearer than he to the dreams that deprive him of sleep, the powers that compel him to idle, to his amorous nymphs and his sanguine athletic gods. How can his knowledge protect his desire for truth from illusion? How can he wait without idols to worship, without their overwhelming persuasion that somewhere over the high hill, under the roots of the oak, in the depths of the sea, is a womb or a tomb wherein he may halt to express some attainment? How can he hope and not dream that his solitude shall disclose a vibrating flame at last, and entrust him forever with its magic secret of how to extemporize life? Thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed that passage, and I hope you'll tune in next time for the next installment of For the Time Being by W.H. Auden.